As we start sim racing, we're introduced to the concept of larger radius equal higher speed when talking about the racing line to allow our car to maintain a higher speed through the turn. However, when trying to apply this principle, 9 out of 10 drivers will make this mistake, using all the track but at the wrong moment. It doesn't matter if you use every inch of the track before turning into the corner. If you slowly start to drift away from the outside of the track, then you have not accomplished anything. Larger radius equal higher speed applies if you do it at the right turning point, and as someone who works with drivers on a daily basis, I can tell this mistake can have various degrees of subtlety.
Now, before going into all these details, if you want to support the channel, giving it a like is a free way to do it, as I can push content like this to more sim racers with the YouTube algorithm.
Some drivers, as soon as they see the apex, they start going diagonally to the corner, shortening the radius and losing speed. This is especially obvious in low-speed corners where straight-line braking is crucial. Initially, before braking, they align to the outside edge of the track using all the available space. So far, so good. However, during braking, they no longer utilize the full width of the track. The gap might be small, but doing this multiple times per lap can quickly add up. It's hard to notice this mistake unless you watch a replay, because in your mind, you align the car correctly before the corner. You might be wondering what's the root cause of this anyway. I think there's two factors involved: tensing up and early braking. Let me explain.
When you're braking, you're looking at the apex as you should be doing. But if you tense up your muscles, you will start gripping very hard the steering wheel, and you will start involuntarily pulling by a few degrees the steering wheel towards the apex instead of maintaining that straight line braking. It doesn't take much angle for the car to drift away from the outside of the track, so if your hands are heavy, you won't be able to feel the small degree turning that's happening. To fix it, the simplest habit that you want to develop is to relax your hands while braking heavily. You will immediately notice if your car starts turning, since you'll be able to feel it in your force feedback. Once you get a cue, you just have to quickly correct it and maintain the straight line braking instead of letting the car turn on its own. Also, there might be the chance that you're running a very aggressive brake bias towards the rears. When that happens, the car will almost dance in the braking zone, but if you grip the steering wheel hard and you put a lot of force into it, you won't let the force feedback to correct that on its own, so you will use a bit less the track at turn in because the car starts drifting away because of the brake bias. You can either increase a bit the brake bias or just relax your hands even more and focus to keep the car straight while braking.
Now the second problem is early braking, which will affect the timing of the corner. If you're braking earlier, you will start a chain reaction of events. One of those events will be turning too early into the corner because the car speed is too low. In some cases, braking too early means 50 meters, in subtle cases it's only 5 meters, but in both you will notice one thing: not using the track at the right point in time and carrying less speed into the corner. To properly take advantage of opening the corner by placing the car all the way to the outside part of the track, you have to find the right braking points. You can do it by easily comparing telemetry versus other people's laps in Garage 61, for example, and check if you're starting to brake at the same time. This is how you set yourself for success and make sure you're actually going to use all the track by turning later to the apex. A good counterexample of not trying to overemphasize the track usage is this sequence of corners in Silverstone, Maggots and Beckett's, and more specifically the end part of it. So as we get to the last corner around here, one common mistake at this point is to over-prepare the next right-hander. As you notice, this is a series of corners, almost like S's, and if you're trying to go like a snake through them and over-exaggerate the S, then you will travel a longer distance, and while turning a lot in the corner, it's quite possible that you will go past the grip limit on the front tires. So instead here, what generally it's the quicker way, is to imagine that you will go in a straight line from this apex to the next. So instead of at this point over prepare by bringing it even more to the left side so that you will use all the track, you already have to start turning into the corner, because if we go too much with the steering wheel to force the car, or if we brake too much before this corner just to properly align all the way to the outside, we will use more steering wheel, we will lose more time, but at the same moment, whenever we want to turn, we will cover a longer radius and the car will understeer. So a key takeaway for corners like this is to imagine that you're going almost in a straight line through the apexes, and to avoid moving like a snake following the S's. Instead, you will try to go as straight as you can through the corners without using all the track. Another good example where you want to avoid using all the tracks are corners that have curbs, which are a lot taller and will make it very uncomfortable to turn or to brake on them. For example, on this track, you really want to avoid using this curb while braking. This curb has a texture on it and the tire will go up and down while braking on it. This will make your braking zone a lot more inefficient, because the surface level of the tire won't make contact with the tarmac at all points. It will almost jump up and down, and because of that you won't be able to efficiently brake. But there's one more argument as well, which can be seen in the next corner as well, here on the exit. Here we're using it, but even though we're using this part of the track to properly have a larger radius in the corner, you will notice when turning in, it's a lot more sluggish. The car is a lot slower to turn in because it has to go over the curb, so you have to compensate for that with turning a bit earlier, just the car will be a bit more delayed. However, for turning in, it's a lot better to use it. It's not, the downside is not that big, but for braking on them, there will be a lot of instances where braking on a curb will make your efficiency under braking to go down. So there are some cases in which you want to purposely avoid using all the track. There are a lot of examples. Barcelona is another good example. Almost each track, if you look closely, will have an example in which if you see a low speed corner and the curb near it, it might be the case that using the curb won't be the faster on the track. It's gonna be depending on your setup, but I highly encourage you to experiment and try braking on those curbs and see what the delta says, see what the lap time says. Example, again here in this corner, I don't want to use this curb while braking because it's a quick and heavy braking zone and I don't want to unsettle the car, but this is gonna be the main principle. I want you to pay attention to it and try to feel what's going on while having light hands and not forcing too much the steering wheel, to notice if you lose some efficiency under braking just because you're opening the track more. One last example that I feel is worth it will be corners like double apexes. In those corners, generally, even if you're going for a V-shaped line, you don't want to go all the way to the outside and use all the track, just because you will cover such a longer distance that you won't even make up for that time lost by being earlier on throttle. So for example, here in Spa, we have this long corner which we treat as a double apex corner, with firstly apex here, then we want the car to track out a bit wider, just a bit closer to the center, and then trail braking and cutting the second apex again. If you will go all the way to the outside, so you will open up a bit more this corner, of course you can be a bit earlier on throttle, but you won't make up for the time lost just because the next straight is not that big. So this straight is up until here. So everything has to be put into a context for you to take the best decisions on the track, and I just want to make you aware with it that using all the track, it's not at all times the best way to do it.
Using all the track is easier said than done, but I hope with this video that I achieved adding a bit more context to the racing line theory that we all knew. If you want to accelerate your progress, if you want to learn at a quicker pace, you can check out my sim racing course. It's in the video description. I think it's a lot of value in it. And if you want, of course, to see more videos like this, then you can subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching and see you in the next one. Bye bye.